Now, moving over to the global scene, the United States has officially designated Nigeria a country of particular concern, following what President Donald Trump described as a wave of genocidal attacks targeting Christians across the West African nation. The announcement, made late Friday in Washington, marks a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy and raises questions about the diplomatic and security implications for Africa's most populous nation, Nigeria. Trump, in a statement released on his social media platform, said the move was a response to what he called mass slaughter and systematic persecution of Christians in Nigeria, attributing responsibility to radical Islamist groups. He warned that Christianity was facing an existential threat and directed the United States Congress to investigate the violence and propose an American response. I will see that the designation known under the U.S. law as a country of particular concern could pave the way for sanctions or restrictions on non-humanitarian aid. Although President Donald Trump clarified that immediate punitive actions were not being taken yet. The declaration sent a strong diplomatic signal that Washington views Nigeria's human rights record and internal security crisis with renewed urgency. But what's the Nigerian government saying about these claims? Nigeria's government swiftly rejected the label, calling the genocide claim false, misleading, and politically motivated. Minister of Foreign Affairs Yusuf Maitama Togar insisted that Nigeria is not witnessing genocide, emphasizing that ongoing violence stems from criminal and extremist activity rather than religious cleansing. Now, for the avoidance of any doubt, there is no genocide now or ever in Nigeria. Those were his words. But is that true? We see that the debate highlights a long-standing complexity in Nigeria's internal conflict. While Christian communities in the Middle Belt and North have suffered repeated attacks from extremist groups such as Boko Haram, ISWAP, and armed herdsmen, thousands of Muslim civilians have also been killed in similar assaults. Analysts argue that the violence, often labeled religious, is deeply rooted in competition over land, ethnic divisions, and weak governance rather than a single faith-based agenda. Now, Trump's decision effectively reverses the stance of the Biden's administration, which in 2021 removed Nigeria from the CPC list, citing progress in counterterrorism cooperation. Also, reinstating Nigeria on the list not only underscores Trump's return to hardline diplomacy, but also reopens the debate on the accuracy and motives of U.S. designations in Africa. Also, observers warn concerning the report that the move could strain relations between Washington and Nigeria at a time when both nations are seeking deeper collaboration on security, counterterrorism, and trade. We see that at the Council on Foreign Relations, a senior analyst noted that the U.S. position risks oversimplifying a complex crisis and also alienating a key African partner. Still, for Christian advocacy groups, Trump's declaration represents long-awaited recognition. A lot of Nigerians have been waiting for this. They've been relying on the United States to come to their aid. We see that the International Christian Concern and other advocacy organizations have for years accused the Nigerian government of not taking adequate actions to protect the minority communities, arguing that attacks on churches, priests, and villages constitute crimes against humanity. The question now is whether Washington's new posture will lead to concrete policy actions or whether it will remain a symbolic rebuke. Maybe like we have seen in other times, Nigeria, already battling insurgency, inflation, and social tension, may face heightened international scrutiny as pressure mounts to demonstrate that its fight against extremism protects all citizens equally. Now, there has been a recent nuclear war, we would say. President Donald Trump's unexpected call for the United States to resume nuclear weapon testing has thrown Washington into confusion and rekindled fears of a potential global arms race. In a late-night social media post, Trump announced that he had directed the Pentagon to start testing nuclear weapons, arguing that the U.S. could not afford to fall behind Russia and China. The statement issued on the eve of a Senate confirmation hearing for Vice Admiral Richard Correll, nominated to nominated to head the U.S. Strategic Command, set the stage for a politically charged and security-sensitive debate. We see that at the hearing, senators pressed Corral on whether the U.S. was about to abandon its 33-year moratorium on nuclear explosive testing, a move expert warned could unravel decades of non-proliferation efforts. If Washington breaks the moratorium, would that not end up now if Moscow and Beijing conduct their own tests and justify an acceleration of nuclear modernization programs worldwide? Corral, careful to avoid speculation, noted that his role would be to offer military advice if discussions on nuclear testing advance. His cautious tone underscored the uncertainty pervading the administration's intentions. Was the president referring to explosive testing or simply testing delivery systems such as missile? Even members of his own party appeared unclear. Now, we see that Trump's renewed testing is it a necessary strategy at this time or a risky provocation? I mean, Russia and China still on the table, and we're talking about North Korea. Let's take a listen.
We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing. We've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also.
Any details around the testing, sir? Like where, when?
It'll be announced. We have test sites. It'll be announced.
For over 3 decades, the US and other nuclear powers have relied on advanced computer simulations to ensure their arsenals remain functional without detonating warheads. Analysts warn that reversing this long-standing policy could reignite Cold War-era tensions. So if the United States resumes live testing, what message does it send to nations like North Korea, which remains the only country to have carried out a nuclear test explosions in the 24th century? Could such a move erode Washington's moral authority in urging nuclear restraint globally? Experts argue that the US has little to gain but much to lose. The country already possesses the world's largest data set from more than 1,000 nuclear tests conducted since 1945. Some security observers suggest that a return to testing would benefit US adversaries, offering them justification to conduct experiments under the guise of parity. Now, this has been interpreted as Trump's move, seeing his move as a high-stakes diplomatic signal aimed at Russia and China, particularly ahead of his planned meeting, which he had during his tour. But we see that the politics right here, is it one of deterrence, which involves him still serving as an effective negotiator or as a tool of negotiation in an era of heightened global insecurity and technological warfare? Russia, which recently tested 2 nuclear-powered weapons, has warned that it would respond in kind if any country resumes nuclear tests. Beijing, also China, meanwhile continues expanding its nuclear arsenal while avoiding arms control negotiations with the US, arguing that its capabilities remain far smaller. So if the US chooses escalation over diplomacy, will it still have leverage to persuade others to return to the negotiating table? Or will it trigger a new era of competitive nuclear posturing like we are seeing here? Meanwhile, within the US, the potential resumption of underground nuclear testing, most likely in Nevada, has reignited concerns among lawmakers and residents who remember the environmental and health toll of past detonations. Senator Jackie Racine of Nevada has vowed to resist any attempt to restart testing in her state, citing decades of radioactive exposure and community trauma. Analysts also questioned the strategic timing of Trump's announcement with STARTCOM, recently reaffirming the reliability of the U.S. nuclear arsenal in January. Is there a credible technical justification for new tests, or is this move largely political theater designed to project strength ahead of global negotiations? Now, what are the global implications and strategic ambiguity as we are seeing here? Breaking the test moratorium could upend the delicate balance of deterrence that has maintained relative nuclear stability since the early 1990s. It could also undermine international confidence in the United States. Their commitment to non-proliferation treaties, particularly the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which Washington has designed and signed but not ratified. So if the world's most powerful democracy, the US, decides to cross that line, How will emerging nuclear states interpret the precedent? Will restraints give way to rivalry, or will diplomatic engagement reassert itself before mistrust spirals into a renewed arms race like we are seeing with Russia, China, and North Korea? As the United States scrambles for this clarity, Trump's latest nuclear declaration has reopened one of the most consequential debates of the post-Cold War era: how far nations are willing to go in the name of deterrence and at what cost to global security.